This is Castle 1. Castle 1.
Yeah, I think we're going to get right hand here. Copy that.
That's my drive and turning.
Max speed straight ahead. Perfect angle.
Still gaining on the lay line there. All boats are below us in the box.
Hey, the speed here, guys. Good pressure this way.
You're looking at 10.5 to 42.
Welcome back, podcast fans. Thank you for joining us. We're back again, and this edition, well, it's quite special. We're going to tell you quite a special story with a very talented offshore sailor. This month, we're talking to the winner of the last Vendee Globe, that 26,000-mile solo offshore marathon that every 4 years sees a fleet of 60-foot monohulls set off on a flat-out lap of the planet. Before we get into all of that, though, thanks to everyone that got in touch after listening to Will Harris. It's always good to hear from you. If you do enjoy the podcast, then head over to buymeacoffee.com/sailing podcast and leave us a message and buy us a coffee or two. It's so great to have your support as we keep the podcast free of annoying ads. So to all of you coffee buyers, a big thank you. And so to this edition. We travelled to France over to the beautiful town of Concarneau to talk to the reigning champion of the Vendee Globe, the incredibly talented Charlie Dalin. If you're a regular listener to this podcast, you'll know how much we love the Vendee Globe. Every 4 years since 1989, a fleet of solo sailors have set off on a circumnavigation of the planet, alone, to try and win this gruelling race. And in 2024, Charlie Dalin set off on his second attempt at winning. In fact, he crossed the finish line first in the previous Vendee, but wasn't awarded the win. More of that later. But in 2024, he sailed a landmark race. Landmark because when he crossed the finish line, he broke the race record, the non-stop solo monohull circumnavigation record, by almost 10 days. In a race that now only lasts a couple of months, that's a massive margin. That's like taking over a second off the 100-metre world record. It was a massive achievement. But part of Charlie's story is also what happened after the race. And if you do know already, I wanted to make it clear before you listen, because Charlie Dalin has another story. When he returned from his record-setting win, Charlie revealed to the world that he had raced the Vendee with cancer, and that he had been treating himself all the way around. It's an illness he's still fighting. And I'm telling you this beforehand because I feel we should. It is not an illness that defines who Charlie is. He is a Vendee winning offshore sailor, a record breaker, a naval architect, a husband, a father. But in this podcast, in part 2 especially, he also talks in detail about his cancer and how that affected his race and his career. After this last Vendee, which finished early in 2025, Charlie published a book. It's in French and it tells the whole story. But to sit down and talk through his life in English, this may be the first time he's done so in such detail. As you'll hear, he studied naval architecture in England. His English is not an issue. But Charlie can talk. And this was a long interview. It's fascinating to listen to some of the nuances of what makes a good offshore solo sailor great. But there are some long answers in this chat where Charlie gets into the groove of telling a story and we let him run with it because it's fascinating to listen to. I hope you enjoy the time I spent with Charlie Dalin.
Everyone can find an interest in a Vendee, the sailors, people interested in technology. You had to deliver excellency, If you were not delivering excellency, you would get fired,
Charlie Dalin here joining us from the wonderful Concarneau. It's great to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining us. We're actually in Mer Concept's headquarters, right in the centre of Concarneau. What happens here?
Well, yes, so we're in Concarneau, that's a little town in Brittany. and that's the HQ of 3 boats actually. My boat, Massif, the SVR Ultime Trimaran, and also the 11th hour little trimaran, 50-foot trimaran. That's where we did the design work for Massif. That's where the trimaran of François Trimaran was built. And actually, the room we're sitting in right now is the very room Charlie Enright and his team prepared the ocean race. Yeah, every time they would be here, all the team would be here in Cocano, that would be their room. So yeah, that's where they prepared their round the world race.
You just gave us a tour of the yard. I mean, it's only just big enough, isn't it, to fit all of that in? It's never big enough. No,
it's never big enough. Yeah, at the beginning they were concerned about, or maybe this yard is a bit big. This bay is a bit big, but no, it's we would like to push the wall a bit more for sure.
Oh, well, it's exciting to be here. So thank you for having us. It's also a beautiful spot, isn't it, to live? But Charlie, you're not from here. No. Are you? That's right, isn't it? You grew up further to the north.
Yeah, I was born in Le Havre, a town, just opposite England, on the other side of the Channel. So I grew up there. I started sailing in Brittany, though. The first time I went sailing was in Crozon, not too far away from here. And that was by luck, I guess, because I'm not from a sailing family. My dad is more in the music industry. My grandfather was a sports person, though, more like ski, tennis, cycling, but not much sailing at the horizon. And I started sailing on Optimist, like many of us, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the freedom of, and you go everywhere you want, and the energy that makes you move is kind of magic. I felt like you don't see the wind. You feel it, but you don't see it, and this magical energy makes you go everywhere you want. I really enjoyed this sense of freedom and when I came back from this holiday in Le Havre, I started sailing more often, but I didn't start straight away, as my main sport. I really started sailing a lot from since when I was 11. But I started racing at 15, and we never missed a training, whether being the wind, I remember one day arriving on Sunday morning. We'd sail Saturdays and Sundays, and one day it was a bit, quite a lot of wind and sea state, and I said, so we're going sailing today? I said, yeah, of course, we always go sailing. Actually, that put us in troubles a couple of times. We had to get rescued, and a couple of times we had all the boats capsized with too much wind. We would hardly miss a sailing session. I remember actually, shoveling snow off the boat when I was 15 or 16. You would arrive at the harbour with snow everywhere and get the snow off the boats, and then sailing in the snow. And I remember we had these snow squalls, and we just couldn't see nothing. You sail under snow, I imagine. And you just can't see. You can't look into the wind. And and that's pretty hectic. And you come back, you're freezing cold. But I think that makes tough sailor. And I think it's good. And I always felt afterwards I would, I didn't, even tough conditions would not really affect me. And so I felt my, the way we train, the way we sail in all conditions, that really helped me to build a resistance to tough conditions. That helped me a lot down the line, for sure.
Yeah, it's not for the faint-hearted sailing in Le Havre.
No.
Hasn't it got one of the strongest tides on the planet? It's full on, isn't it? There. Yeah,
it's pretty strong, and you've got the ships and everything. But it's a good place. Yes, it was great years learning racing.
Charlie, this time last year, of course, you were just crossing the equator. About then, days into the last Vendee. It's been a year now. I mean, how does winning the Vendee Globe as a French skipper in France, I mean, how has that changed your life? What's it been like?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't have much time where I could enjoy the win because we'll talk about this later. But quite rapidly after my win, I had to go under surgery. So yeah, like all the doors, all the nice things I could have done in 2025, most of them had to be cancelled. So that was a bit frustrating, I even missed the prize giving ceremony, and I was looking forward to that ceremony because that was held on the 10th of May, and that's my birthday. And so yeah, I was looking forward to this ceremony, but I couldn't even attend. That was supposed to be my best birthday, and I ended up being the worst by far. So. Yeah, but yeah, I missed so many things. I was supposed to give the start of the 24 hours Le Mans race with Roger Federer, but I couldn't attend that. And I was invited to go for a ride in a Rafale fighter jet as well. I couldn't make this as well. So yeah, that was a bit frustrating. So many nice things I could have done, but I tried to catch up.
We'll get to all of that a little bit later. But the Vendee is crazy, isn't it? I mean, as a British journalist, we've both, Tim and I, filmed at the Vendee many, many times. And it's hard to explain to anyone who's not French. It is such an amazing experience, isn't it? Hundreds of thousands of people coming just to see you guys leave. And that's it. The gun goes off. And off you go across the horizon, and the Sable d'Olonne just empties. I mean, explain to us why the Vendee Globe is such a big event here in France.
I think it's a big event because it's simple. Everyone can understand. You start from this town in France called Les Sables on your own, on a boat. All the boats are the same length. So there's only one class, one category. There is no, it's not IRC, there's no time compensation. Yeah, and you start from this harbor, and you've got 3 capes to round. Good Hope, Lewin, and Horn, and Cape Horn. And then you go back to Les Sables, and it's a long race. So often I've heard people that say, "Oh yeah, I didn't follow from the start," but it used to be 3 months long race, and also, everyone can find an interest in a Vendee. The sailors, people interested in technology, in competition, they follow the lead group with the latest generation boats and with all these technologies, and now I've got these falls and amazing speeds, and some people, they're more interested into the personal journey and the adventure. The adventure of some of the sailors do. And so maybe I feel like some people can more able to relate to sailors that are, so some sailors that's like one of a time adventure and one of a time one goal. Sorry. One of a time, life goal nearly, and yeah. So if you're more into the human adventure, you'll find what you want. If you're more into the competition, you find what you want. You can also almost nearly all of the French schools follow like all the pupils, kids. All the kids follow the race with their school, with their teachers, because they can talk about the oceans, the animals, the geography, and yeah, almost all schools in France follow the race, and then the kids, when they go back home, they talk to their parents about the race, so the parents start following as well, and also they've been like big rescue operations as well that makes the headlines, and so yeah, like. The smaller races, in terms of aura, they're often followed more by the, coastal people, people that live in the west the western coast of France. But the Vendée, it followed, from everywhere in France. I got letters from school classes from the east, from the southeast, from the north, from all sides, from all everywhere in France. It's a big one. It's a big race for sure. Yeah. I think the second biggest is the Route. But the biggest for sure is the Vendee Globe. Yeah.
It's something else. I mean, it's very much hard to explain to anyone who hasn't seen it for themselves, the scale of it and the energy.
Well, it's something to see, if you're into sailing, and also it's a rare event as well, and rarity makes, even greater, and you want to see more, it's like the Olympics, it's every 4 years. It's actually the same year as the Summer Olympics. That Vendée was held just after the Paris Olympics, and the next Vendée will be held just after the Los Angeles Olympics as well. So it's the same year as the Summer Olympics every time, and also the US presidency election as well. It's
all the best things lining up. The first Vendée would have been 89, 90. I think 13 boats left Les Sables, and Charlie Dalin was 5 years old. You had posters on your walls, didn't you, of all your heroes? I mean, who were they? I'm guessing maybe Alain Gauthier, maybe the Perron brothers, Bruno and Loïc. Who was the young Charlie looking up to?
I think I had a Franck Hamas poster. I also had a Paul Vatin poster as well, who was like the big sailing figure of Le Havre when I was young. And all these sailing books as well. Every year at Christmas, the present I would get from my grandparents was a subscription to a big French sailing magazine, and every month, I would be anxious, like really waiting for my magazine to arrive, in the post, and so every time I loved discovering what was the cover of the magazine, and every time there was a race boat, I was like, oh wow, cool, what an amazing shot. Every time there was a cruising boat on a tall ship, was like, disappointment. But and I spent hours, sometimes I would spend hours looking at just one picture, I remember a picture of this mini transat boat. That was a double page picture. So you could see that was a pretty close-up photo. You could see the guy, helming his boat, and you could see, that was just after at the finish of the transat race. So you could see a bit of you could see that the boat was a bit worn out by a transat, and I spent hours just looking at these photos, imagining myself on that boat as well.
So, as you say, you had the bug, you loved it. You're already a sailing nerd, and as a student, decided to head to the UK. I guess not very far from Le Havre. No. I can't tell you how many top-level sailors and naval architects from the offshore world and from the Cup that we've interviewed over the years have studied at Southampton University. It is many. I mean, tell us, what did you learn there? What did you study, and why go there?
So the person who advised me to go there was Marc Lombard, like a very famous architect. He was based in La Rochelle, and I think it was in high school, and I went to see him for like one day, and he advised me to go there and gave me the contact of Dr. Stefan Turnock. The last summer before starting, I decided to go to the Isle of Wight, and I spent a month camping in an East Cowes campsite. And the idea was to use sailing as a social vector to meet people and go sailing. And so I arrived this Thursday. I remember it was a Thursday, and so I found my campsite, set up my tent, go for a bit of food shopping, and I said, all right, let's go. I'm going to go. So I decided to go straight away down the East Cowes docks. And I bumped into this guy next London Cup, retired London Cup, and he was one guy down for this his Thursday night race, and he said, "Okay, let's go. Yeah, I take you on sailing." So yeah, that was a good twilight sail in front of cows, and when I must have done the job, because when I came back we exchanged numbers, and the very next day I received a voicemail from him, and I barely understood what he was saying, but I kind of got that someone was sick and he needed someone for the very same night. And say, okay, so I thought that I was going to go for another twilight sail. And so I meet him, I don't know, like late afternoon in his cows, and we go to his boat, and he starts showing me all these safety gears. And I said, well, I knew, British people were into their safety, but I felt that was pretty big for a Friday night event. But okay, that's okay. I know that's good, fine with me. And then he's at the end of the tour, the safety tour of the boat, he picks a sailing map, deploys it on the chart table, and says, "So we're here and we're going there." And that's when I realized that I was going to sail double-handed with him to Brixham. I thought I was going to be back at my tent like 2 hours later, but no. So we sailed to Brixham, arrived on Saturday afternoon, the fish and chips at the Brixham Yacht Club, slept on the boat and sailed back on the Sunday. And so, yeah, I thought I was going to be back on Friday night, but I was back on Sunday in Cowes, and yeah, that was great. Anyway, yeah, when I got to Southampton Uni, that was amazing. This campus is great. You've got this huge library. You've got this amazing sports facilities. You've got this wind tunnel, this little tank test facility, or the Robertson unit. And yeah, I was really living a dream, and yeah, that was really amazing years, and I really felt also as student we were really considered, I just finished my high school in France, and yeah, I remember like teachers in France, they were looking at us like not much, And you arrived there and you had an ideas and you really listened, and the relation, professors, students was not the same at all compared to, to what it was in high school before, and it really struck me the difference. But yeah, that was really amazing years, and I was obviously like a lot of guys into sailing. I was going to the Solent every weekend for the Sunday race. In my second year, I applied to the Barrow Britain Academy. And that was an amazing year. This year, in 2004, I think I went back home for the Christmas holiday, and then I only went home like in August. Afterwards, I didn't see my family for 8 months or something. Because I did the trials in April, and then I did around the island, Cowes Week. I think we did Cork Week and the Commodores Cup as well. Yeah, that was a great year. We were living in Cowes in this big crew house. Yeah, that was good fun. Yeah.
It was a great program at the time, wasn't it? It was a FAR 52 owned, you said, by a lovely couple, the Hope Days. It must have really sowed the seed, Charlie, that you wanted a career as a pro sailor. Yeah,
I was already living a dream, back then. We were sailing as the Team GBR. They were sailing on, I think, Cheney-Cliff too. And there was a third FAR 52 in the Solent at the time. So, we had this fleet of three FAR 52 selling it against each other. That was great, and we were so many on board, 14 to 18 crew, and yeah, that was great. Yeah.
We just interviewed Will Harris in our last podcast, 2016 Solitaire de Figaro Rookie of the Year. I mean, it's such an important piece of the puzzle, isn't it? The Solitaire de Figaro. you've all done it for years. I mean, explain what it is and why it is so important to offshore sailing, and why for you it was the next step.
So yeah, I finished my uni year. I do this really cool project in my third year, where I work with North Sails UK, testing the square top main and big rotor Noahs for Team GPR. That was great. And fourth year we did this solid sail program, which was really cool as well, with wind tunnel testing and CFD and everything. I worked a bit at the international as well. I went sailing. I went to Australia. When I was in Australia, I got offered a job in CMI in Thailand by Palm Green, and so I spent a bit of time there. And whilst I was in Thailand, I got offered a job to work for Robertson racing team in Sweden. So I went from Thailand to Sweden. That was a big contrast in everything, in terms of price of living, in terms of climate, in terms of culture, in terms of food. But yeah, that was a great year project, in a 1 year, 13 months project in Stockholm. And I learned a lot. And I learned Kilian is a very... everything he can do to make a boat as perfect as he can, he will do it. I remember all the Nomex sheets were weighed, and they reworked the density of each Nomex sheet, and so he would place the higher density sheet close to a midship, and the lighter one towards the bow and all the transom, and that was just this for everything. The length of the boat, I think there are like half a mil tolerance for the boat to be above the 70-foot maximum length, and so he went for this half a mil tolerance. So the boat was half a mil bigger than 70 foot, but he wanted this half a mil, and that was this for everything, and I really like this. This search for perfection, and that was a big project, and the salaries were definitely good, but you had to deliver excellency. If you were not delivering excellency, you would get fired. So if you were not up to the task and up to the excellency that was expected from you, you would get fired straight away. And yeah, I learned a lot about boat building and accuracy, and that was a good, very good. And after this, I went back to Australia to work in boat speed for this Oman Air big try, 105-foot try. I did a mini transat, and then I started Figaro sailing in 2011. So I wanted to sail Figaros because to me that was the class of excellency of where all the top sailors, the French top offshore sailors, would go. And what I really liked about the Figaro class is everyone had the same boat, So you could not buy technology, Money could not get you a faster boat, and so you put a good Figaro sailor on IMOCA, he will exploit the full potential of his boat for sure. So, and so I managed to get quite good result in the class. In my third solitaire, I managed to reach my first podium. And on my third season, I managed to win the French offshore elite championship. I did podiums on all the events of the calendar of the championship, and I won that title again with Massif in 2016. And I never managed to win the solitaire, but I managed to do 5 podium in a row, and I think I'm the only one who ever managed to do that in the class. I think I've got 3 third places and 2 second places. On our first outing, we reached 26.6 knots of boat speed, which was pretty good back then. My 2020 Vendee was only my second single-handed race on an IMOCA ever. And when I crossed the line, I'm the first to finish, but I know quite a few boats will get compensation.
Well, Massif found you in the Figaro circuit, didn't they? A long-term sponsor. I mean, eventually you then start to sail in the IMOCA class. How did that happen, Charlie? I'm guessing that was always the goal.
The first time I followed the Vendee, I was 12. That was the 1996 event. And I followed, that's the first time I followed the Vendee, but I was not dreaming about doing the Vendee. I was dreaming following the Vendee, you know. At that time I was sailing 420s and they were sailing these 60-footers on their own around the world, and that felt completely inaccessible, you know, impossible for me, you know. I really felt, you know, from, you know, another dimension for me, another world, you know, and that's only when a couple of years in Figaro class that I started to allow myself to imagine myself to one day race the Vendee, you know. Before that, that felt a bit too much of a too big of a race, you know, for me, you know. And I started dreaming about doing that race, quite a long way down my career, you know. Only when I felt like when I started to feel that maybe one day I have the level to do it. So.
How exciting was it when that?
Oh, that was great.
Started to happen,
that was a great year this year because I signed with PVR in 2016. 2018. And everything happened this year. Like for everyone in their life, you know, everything happened at the same time. So in a space of 2 weeks, you know, Perrine, my wife, you know, announced me that she was pregnant. And pretty much at the same time, PVR signed for a 4-year Vendee campaign. Yeah, so everything happened at the same time, and yeah, that was great. What was great is they really put a lot of trust in me by going all in straight away. You know, they didn't say, okay, we'll see how you go on a second-hand boat or on a lower budget campaign. You know, they went we went for a big campaign straight off, you know, straight away, and that was great, you know. And at the beginning, you get, you know, you do doubt, you know. You say, you know, you want to prove that they're right, you know, because before then I only sailed maybe I did one transat on a double-headed transat with Jan Elias in 2015. We came third in a Jacques Vabre, but I never sailed solo on an IMOCA. The biggest boat I skipped was skipped off. I skipped before that was a Figaro, you know, so it's only 10-meter boat, and so it's a big step, and but a big step also in trust from them. And I really wanted to show them that they made the right choice, and that came quite rapidly because so we do the design of the boat. I spent a lot of time with Guillaume Verdier. I spent a lot of time with the team on every aspect, being part of every decision we make regarding hull shape, foil positioning, full shape, cockpit setup, everything. You know, as a naval architect, that was great. You know, to have this opportunity to have a boat built for me. You know, that was amazing. And so I spent. You know, back then I was, you know, I would arrive pretty early at work, and I would leave at 7 every night, you know, or sometimes later, because, you know, I just wanted to spend as much time with the design team, deciding to, you know, being part of the decision of everything, you know, and so we launched the boat. We launched the boat pretty late on the season. We launched the boat in August. And so we don't manage to do any races before the Jacques Vabre. So our very first race is a transatlantic with Ian Elliott, and we won it. And that was from Le Havre to Brazil, and that was my first ever race as a skipper of an IMOCA. That was the first ever race of the boat of Apivia, and we won. And also, that was not like any race for me. That was the Jacques Vabre. A race starting from my hometown, a race that definitely played a big role into my passion of sailing. And when we arrived in the bay at sunset with the boat, 10 days before the start of the race, that was great. I was looking at the Le Havre beach, and I remembered, my younger years, sailing in the bay or making sandcastle on the sand, and I was like, wow, you made it. That's great. You're a skipper of a brand new IMOCA. You're going to the Vendee next year. And at that point, when we arrived with the boat, I didn't feel I could get even better. But it did, because we won the race, 2 weeks later. So that was great. And when we crossed the finish line as winners in Bahia, Brazil, one of the first things I told myself is, well, good, now hopefully Apivia will think they made the right choice in trusting you for a big campaign with a brand new boat. So yeah, that was a good feeling. Yeah.
It wasn't just your first race as skipper of quite a big boat. They were also second generation foiling IMOCAs.
Yeah.
How big a deal was that? And how much foiling experience did you have?
I was sailing at a little moth, Mach 2 moth back then, so I was already into foiling. Yes, I was spending quite every time I could, I would go in the bay, foiling around on my moth. And so I knew a bit about foiling, but in IMOCA that was definitely new. And during the design stage of the boat, the first fall design Guillaume sent us, they were pretty big falls. So, but you see them on the screen, you don't really realize how big they are. So I told Antoine Carraz, who was my technical manager back then. Okay, let's get a roll of tape and let's mark it down the yard, and see how big this thing is, And it did feel really, really big. And they were definitely much, much bigger than the 2016 falls. And from that point on, we said, wow, okay, these boats are going to be something different, They're going to go for sure, definitely very fast, and yeah, that was it's true. That's the second generation of foiling IMOCAs, but that's the first generation where the concept was fully embraced. The first gen was made reversible. The whole shape that they went for were able to accommodate for dagger boards if they felt like falls were not, working as well as they thought. So the Apivia generation, the Gen 2, was the first generation where all the designers really embraced the concept. So yeah, that was great. I think on our first outing we reached 26.6 knots of boat speed, which was pretty good back then. And yeah, that was everything had to be reinvented. Spinnakers were not. We couldn't use spinnakers as before because the apparent wind was too far forward. We felt like we didn't have needed as much sail area as we needed before. Yeah, that changed quite a lot of things. Also, the bumpiness of the ride was pretty tough, and the problem is we realized that the slamming was not. You didn't have the warning of a normal conventional boat slamming. On a normal boat, when you feel a boat going up and you're going to to come down afterwards. On foiling IMOCAs, it's not the case. Sometimes you go up a wave, but the fall catches you on the way back, and on the way down, it's a smooth landing. Sometimes the boat is a bit up on the fall, and you just slam into a wave, and you get a big slam, and with no warning, And at the beginning, not having a warning when the boat would slam was definitely one of the toughest thing. You get these surprise slams all the time. that was not good for to rest and stress levels for sure. Yeah.
We'll come back to foils in a bit. I'm going to talk about your first Vendee Globe, 2020. It had been a weird year, hadn't it?
Yeah.
COVID, all of that. But you were on the start line with a new boat, a dream come true.
Yeah. Like as you said, during during lockdown, we didn't even know if the Vendee was going to happen. Remember we had these Zoom calls with everyone, with the organizers. Are we going? Are we not going? What's the government saying about the event being held or not? And there was big uncertainties. They talked about postponing the Vendee for the following year. In the end, they went for it, and I think that was the right choice. So my training program was greatly affected by by the COVID, because I won the Jacques Vabre, and then I decided to sail on my own to the Azores. I didn't want to sail all the way back to France regarding traffic density. So I sailed from Bahia to the Azores. It took me 11 days, so I used this as a qualifier for the Vendee, and also to try myself sailing an IMOCA on my own for the first time, and truly on my own, And so that was the first part of my solo training, and second part was supposed to be a return return trip to the US with a transat and a race from New York to Les Sables d'Olonne, but this was cancelled, and that was replaced by only a 10-day Vendee Arctic race. And my solo training time was greatly reduced compared to what I was expected. So what turned out is my 2020 Vendee was only my second single-handed race on an IMOCA ever. So that didn't feel like much training before, single-handed training before setting sail around the world. But that was it, and I had to deal with it, and I really felt like I was going around, I was progressing, improving the way I would maneuver, how I would maneuver when I would maneuver and everything. And the race went pretty well. And one of the key goals of the boat of Apivia was to have the right performance to be able to be the first at Cape of Good Hope, in the hope of getting the first train of low pressure and make a break straight away in the Indian Ocean. So that was the goal, and so I did manage to be the first at Cape of Good Hope. I think I had a 300 nautical mile lead back then. And at the same time, I sailed from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. Kevin Escoffier sank. He had to be rescued, and in the search party, I think 4 or 5 boats took part in the search party, and they were awarded compensation time for their time rescuing Kevin Escoffier. And so at that time, I didn't think much about this. I didn't think that would, have any impact on the final result of the race. So I kept racing. But I had a big problem with Apivia at the end of the Indian Ocean. I lost the bottom half of my foil port bearing. And at that time, I thought I was going to retire. We started looking at harbors in Australia or New Zealand to stop, and And in the end, like everyone here in Mer Concept, they gathered. And that was a bit of like an Apollo 13 mission, They had a list of everything I had on board. And they said, right, he's got this on board, what can we do, And they find... They send me this repair program, this PDF with like so many steps to make this replacement bottom bearing for my fall. And when I look at the document for the first time, I was like, guys, that's like impossible. Have you seen how many steps there is? And so that was my first reaction. But then I started, line by line, step by step, and I managed to build this bearing, and I spent I was pretty lucky weather-wise because I had this little good nice weather window to make the repair. The wind was only blowing 20 knots. There's like a nice sunny day and not much sea state, and so I put the canting gear to leeward. I put trim my J3 against the wind. Shifted my main hard on to make the boat heel as much as possible, and hung myself with a halyard to try to fit the bearing. And it took me countless of return trip from the cockpit with the grinding the bearing to try to make it fit. And yeah, that was really, really hard work. And I could see the sun, going down on the horizon. And I was getting pretty tired, I started at sunrise. And yeah, I've been working all day on the repair project. And I was losing like a lot of miles to the others at the same time because I had to stop the boat. And the sun was almost set. And I was like, yeah, if the bearing is not going in now, it's... I was like, I said, it's not going to be reasonable to keep working at night. So, I was about to give up, and then right at the end, before the sun disappeared behind the horizon, I managed to fit the bearing in, and I was like, that's it. And I deployed my fractional zero, and I went to sleep. But that was the promise. That was a repair I had to nurse, halfway around the world, because I had to add ropes to the fall to hold the fall, to stop the fall from moving around. The risk was to make a hole in the hull, and start to bring water in, which was not good. And I didn't have much time to decide whether or not I was safe to keep sailing. I made my final decision off New Zealand because the Pacific was ahead, and I didn't want to start thinking in the middle of the Pacific. So I did spend like a few days. Try to decide, to assess whether or not it was safe to keep racing, and I decided to. But yeah, I had to really nurse the repair, and I would replace the rope that would break, holding the fall in place, and even to the very last night of the race, one of the main rope holding the fall broke off when I was off Cape Finisterre, and even to the last minute, I had to deal with this problem, and that was a very frustrating problem because, as you know, when you sail up the Atlantic, you sail most of your time on starboard tack, and so I couldn't use my port fall because that's the port bearing that I lost, and seeing the speed I was sailing at going up the Atlantic, they were pretty low speeds compared to what I could have done with the fall, and that was pretty tough a moment. Seeing like how slow I was compared to what the real speed potential of the boat was with the fall was there. So
a massive compromise. to your race.
Yeah, and and also that creates problem regarding the routing you make, because at that time you couldn't have asymmetrical polar. So that was quite hard to decide. That was pretty hard for me to decide what on the route I would take, because the routing was off all the time. So that made things even more complicated. And and also I lost my second wind instrument in the Indian Ocean as well, and I sailed all the southern part of the Vendee with only a deck, like a deck high wind instrument, which is really not accurate, And I would change the pole, and that was like a 2 or 3 meter long pole. I would have to change side every time I would jibe, and that would take me like about 10 minutes of going slow every time I would jibe, and luckily I managed to find a weather window to go up the masts a couple of days after Cape Horn, and having a wind instrument working at the top of the mast, working again was great. Though and you don't know if the repair worked until you go back on deck and you switch on the wind instrument again. So you do all this repair at the top of the mast, and that was pretty crazy repair, because I was still pretty far south when I made the repair. So albatross were still there, and for the first time was seeing albatross flying from above. So I was seeing them. Yes, they were pretty low above the water, and I could see them flying around the boat, but from above, and that was a pretty good sight. That was a great sight, and when I finally after 1 hour work, when I put my feet back on deck, and I saw the instrument working, that was a great relief, and that was good to have a pilot working better enough to change a pole or change side the pole every time I would jibe. So that was good.
Despite all those issues, you had a great Atlantic and crossed the line in the Sable d'Olonne first, but weren't awarded the win. Just explain what happened.
Yeah, so crossing a finish line first was already was a great achievement, after all the troubles I had, and the fact that we almost gave up the race south of Australia, and so that was pretty good. Felt like a pretty big feat already. Decided not to abandon the race back then, but because of the rescue of Kevin Escopier, 4 or 5 boats had time compensation, so they were going to be awarded a compensation after crossing the finish. And the problem is that we had this big, the fleet regrouped in the south, and this compensation didn't have any much meaning anymore, and so I ended up sailing next to sailors who had that almost felt like an advantage. And for example, Yannick had a 10.5 hour compensation, so that actually made the way up the Atlantic a bit more complicated, because I had to on my tactics. I also had to decide. When I was sailing next to Yannick or Boris, if I was next to Boris, I know I was actually not next to him. He was maybe 6 hours ahead of me, and so that made all the tactics even more complicated. And when I crossed the line, I'm the first to finish, but I know quite a few boats will get compensation, and so I just don't know whether or not they're going to finish. I know basically Yannick felt like he was the biggest threat back then, and so he had to finish at least 10.5 hours behind me. But the speed he was sailing at and the angle he was sailing at, I did a quick hand calculus at that time, and it felt like that was not going to be enough, And so I do all the press conference, everything, and I go to bed. And Yannick crossed the finish line when I was sleeping. And when I woke up, I saw that he was declared winner of the race. And that was a particular moment. Yeah.
How tough was that?
Well, it didn't feel tough at the beginning, because I was just, I was happy winning. I was happy finishing the Vendee. I was happy to have raced on my own around the world, managing to finish ahead of the race even with this fall problem, and also I never questioned this time compensation because I think it's normal, to be awarded compensation when you go and help someone. The last thing you want is to one day a guy to sell next by a guy in trouble and not go help him because he might not win the race. So, but even though you accept the compensation, doesn't mean it's easy to live with, and accept. And when everything, when all the euphoria started to come down, and I started to go in this what we call a Vendee blues period, I started to realize that after 80 days at sea, I missed. I didn't win the event by 2.5 hours, and by 2 hours, and that felt like not much, and that was tough. And then from then on, started a long period of time where every time I would wake up at night, I would go through all of my strategical choice, all of my maneuvers, and I started chasing the minutes. I lost during the race, and how I could have done to win it despite this, to find this 2.5 hour, missing 2.5 hours.
That's it for part one. We leave Charlie in 2021, having sailed non-stop solo around the world to cross the finish line first and not lift the trophy. It was a tricky time for Charlie. As he says, it's the way it is. He's circumspect about it. Yannick Bestaven won that Vendee Globe and deserved the win. But I think it's a real measure of Charlie, that rather than get angry about it and let the anger fuel his desire to go again, he analysed his own race. He looked at where he could have done better to make up those 10 hours compensation that Yannick was given. So in the next edition, we'll hear just how that result manifested itself in Charlie's next campaign. A massive thanks to Charlie for sitting down with us. As I said, it was a long chat. So Charlie, a big, big thank you. And to the team at Mer Concept and Concarno, thank you for your hospitality. And to Mary Astrid for helping set the whole thing up and providing us with promotional material. A big, big thanks. If you like what we're doing here on the podcast, do head over to buymeacoffee.com/sailing podcast and support the work we do. It means a lot and helps us put the whole thing together ad-free every month. Before I go, a big, big thank you to the talented Tim at Vertigo Films, producing the podcast amongst everything else he does. So Tim, massive thanks. And so that's us. Do tune into part 2 with Charlie. Until next time, thank you so much for listening and have fun on the water and sail safe, everyone.
This is Castle 1.
I think we're going to get right hand here. Copy that.
That's my drive and turning.
Max speed straight ahead. Perfect angle.
Still gaining on the lay line there. All boats are below us in the box.
Hey, the spoon here, guys. Good pressure this way.
You're looking at 10.5 to 42.
This is Castle 1 standing by. Out.